Well, doesn't it just feel amazing to know that it's yet another lovely Wednesday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, of course, it's another beautiful episode of Flipside on Independent Television, reaching you live from the city where the king is truly king. Now, Flipside is a show that seeks to put a balance to issues by taking a look at them from different perspectives, just so we can have a robust discussion. My name is Harry Aigboje, and of course, it's my pleasure to have you join me on this episode of the show. Yeah, it's another opportunity to discuss issues that are often not looked at. Okay, so yeah, that's what Flipside is all about. Now, today we're taking a look at a very interesting topic, and it's something that has to do with our culture, our heritage, our identity, preserving our cultural heritage in the face of modernization. Now, if you take a look around, you'd see that we are under serious influence of Western civilization. Virtually everything we do is influenced by the West, from the way we speak, from the way we carry ourselves, the way we appear in public. It all has a reflection of the white man's culture. So how do we preserve our own indigenous culture in the face of all of this? And that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. And to look at this with me, two very, very amazing people in the house. To my far left is someone who happens to be a historian, and he's also a resource person. He goes by the name of Foster Nosakae Iyamo.
Good afternoon, yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Foster.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Indeed, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And of course, seated next to Foster is a lady. She's a public affairs analyst, and of course, she's also an entrepreneur. She goes by the name of Gina, a woman.
Thanks, Harry, for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's set the ball rolling. We have quite a number of interesting issues to take a look at as far as preserving our cultural heritage is concerned. And first is the matter of the term itself, cultural heritage. So when you hear the word heritage or our cultural heritage, what does that encompass?
When you talk of cultural heritage, you are looking at a way of life of a particular people.
Okay.
That way of life identifies them. It has been handed down to them from one generation to the other. For example, when you see somebody prostrating to greet the elders, you know that that person is from the Yoruba side of our country.
Okay.
When you see a young man shaking an elderly man with two hands, you know that that man is a Benin man. It is what we inherited from our fathers.
Okay.
So I would say, in a nutshell, cultural heritage encompasses the sum total of what identifies a people.
Okay. The sum total of what identifies a people.
Yes.
So our cultural heritage is basically who we are.
Who we are, yes.
Exactly.
Right from our names, the food we eat, the kind of clothes we wear, the way we address our elders, even up to our rituals and ceremonies. So the way the Yoruba ritualize is not the way the Benin they ritualize.
Okay.
The way the Benin ritualize is different from the way the Hausa ritualize. Just like that. That is why we are a distinct set of people.
Okay.
In our society, in different societies.
All right. Gina, is that your perspective to it, or you have a different?
I want to support what he said.
Okay.
It simply means traditions, customs that has been passed down from one generation to another.
Okay.
And it's even comprising of tangible and intangible elements. The tangible elements, it actually includes what? Historical sites,
Okay.
monuments, archaeological sites. Then the intangible part, it talks about what? Language, the food you eat.
Okay.
It also has
So
a
the
way
food
of,
we eat is a part of it.
it's a part of our culture.
We have joining us right about now a historian, another historian. Of course, we have a good number of historians in the house. He goes by the name of Moses Obapolo. Welcome on board, sir.
Thank you so much. Viewers, I greet you.
All right, you're welcome, sir. I was actually trying to examine one very, very important part of the discourse, which is how or what comprises, the African cultural heritage. Now, if you take a look around you, sir, you'll see that the Benin cultural heritage, for instance, seems to be gaining a lot of publicity, especially on the global stage. If you're very active on social media, you see our content, gaining a lot of attention, out there. So you see people, especially people from the Benin part of the country, putting out amazing content, and people from far away Asia vibing to most of our content. So what is it about our culture that actually fascinates people so much?
Well, everything is fascinating about Benin. When we say Benin, we mean the entire Edoid stock. I'm talking about the physical geographical limits of the old Benin Empire as expanded by Oba Ewari in the 1400s. But before then, Benin had a very organized system, political, religious, and economic. Of course, the major attraction to come to Benin around the early 15th, 14th century was commerce. First, the Danes were here, the French, they were here, and later the Portuguese, and more recently, the British. The most fascinating thing about Benin was the political structure and their tenacity, ambidextrous will when they are at war, because Benin was known not to lose any battle until the expedition of 1897. Now, talking about Benin, recently we are hinging on arts, because the art of Benin became more valuable when they were stolen and taken out of the shores of Africa during the British invasion of 1897. And during First Act, the whole world was stunned when the mascot, the symbol of the All-African Black Festival of Arts and
Talking about the Idiom mask now.
First Act was a actually an ivory carving resting in the British Museum. Now it is in all forms of sculpturing and art forms.
You're talking about the Idia mask?
Talking about the Idia mask,
okay,
which represents Idia, the mother of Oba Esigi. Apart from that, if you go to museums around the world right now, Benin works of arts are done all, and they are the most valuable. And they had so much to offer to the world. When Roy de Siqueira visited Benin, he saw a city and compared it to a city in Holland. Oh. Well-paved streets, because in the time of Oba Ewai, we had straight roads, and Pakpava was actually lit by oil lamps. The first, indication of the fact that there can be street lights in the world. I'm sure then Europe had not even woken up to electricity. So
okay.
Benin has been great from time immemorial.
Okay.
And they continue to be great.
Okay. Now you've just told us that even before the incursion of the white man, the Benin culture has always been prominent, and Benin people have always been civilized, right? So why do we always reckon ourselves according to the white man's idea of civilization? I'd like you to respond to that, Foster. Why is it that we do not consider ourselves civilized until we are able to measure up to the standard of the white man, so to speak?
Okay, if I may say, I personally, I feel that the black man feels inferior,
okay,
to the white man, believing that everything Western supersedes that of the black man. But I, for one, I don't think along that line. I don't feel that the white man is more superior than me. Why? It is the same components that makes up the white man that makes me. If the white man can think,
So can you?
I can also think. Now, we are talking of civilization. The misconception about civilization is that people see civilization as a culture that cuts across its own boundary to another boundary where it is not adopted, thereby discarding your own indigenous culture.
Okay.
I don't see that as civilization. What I see as civilization is a culture that has cut across its boundary to another boundary where it is adopted to bring out the beauty of the culture of the latter boundary. Now, I can speak Benin very well because I'm a Benin man. I can also speak English very well. So I am civilized. So the white man, the British man that cannot speak my Edo dialect is not civilized in my own language. Meanwhile, I am civilized in his own language.
Okay, quick question. Would you also consider yourself civilized if you could only speak your dialect and not the white man's?
Yes. Why do I say that? Now, if you go to Japan, they speak their Japanese language. They don't speak English.
Okay.
And they cannot because of you learn English. The Chinese are who they are today, still speaking the Chinese language. If you want to engage a Chinese expatriate in Nigeria, you have to go and hire an interpreter for him. He will not because of you go and learn the English language. He still remains who he is. He is civilized in his own sense. So I'm also civilized in my own sense. Okay. So why will I think Western civilization is what makes me civilized? No.
Okay.
Who taught, like what my colleague just said, who taught the Benin man to come up with the idea of lighting the streets with lights?
Yeah.
Who gave the Benin man the idea of coming up with constructing straight roads?
Yeah.
You even see right from the beginning, like he made mention of commerce. Commerce has always been the interest of the Benin. What started as Benin did not start as a kingdom. Rather, they were all autonomous villages headed by a Dionwe.
Okay.
In the singular form, you have a Dionwe. The moment it is now more than one, it becomes a Dionwe.
Okay.
So for the purpose of commerce and for the purpose of defending themselves against external invasion, they decided to come together as one to form a kingdom. And Igodo, who was the strongest of the Edionwe, usurped power and became the first Ogiso. So why? Who gave them such ideas?
Okay.
It was civilization that led to that. If they were not civilized, they would have been exposed to dangers. If you look at the Benimots, Benin was not a country a kingdom that was invaded from the outside. Rather, the Benin, they would go outside Benin to invade other territories.
Conquer other territories.
They had to build moats around Benin.
Okay.
It was part of their civilization. Now, before you can get to Benin, you have to cross the moat. And in the process of crossing the moat, the Benin soldiers will strike. It was part of civilization. It was their strategy to engage their enemies in war.
So you're saying that all of that ingenuity was independent of the white man's...
Yes, it was independent of the white man. The white man showed to us what they know. Without knowing without them, they do not want to know what we know.
Okay.
And it is so unfortunate that we are now adopting the white man's civilization to the detriment of our own civilization, instead of using the white man's civilization to complement our own civilization.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, how has this impacted our values as Africans? I'm talking the way we behave. I'm sure before the white man came, we had our ways of life, and we had our definition of good and evil, the things that we considered right and wrong. So how has the influence of the white man's culture impacted on our values as Africans? Junior. Yeah, you.
Okay. Starting from the family life. Prior to the pre-colonial times, Africa, they maintained this communal form of living. Their family will comprise of the father, mother, children up to children,
The extended family.
extended
structure.
family.
Okay.
But the tide now is now what? Along individualistic line. Like the man getting married to the wife, himself and just the children alone. It's even bad up to that extent when family, they come out maybe for a reunion, for example,
Okay.
they will barely, maybe my children, they will
Barely
be
bond.
unable to
Okay.
recognize my brother or my sister's child, as the case may be. But prior
terrible.
to this time, it wasn't like that.
So, okay.
And another area too is in the area of respect. An average African man or woman, they are so respectful. But the reverse is the case these days. When you talk to someone that is even younger, the way they will look at you, the way their behavioral disposition towards you, because they are not exposed to what different form of idea. They do not like actually see adults as if, or maybe someone that is senior to them, they do not see them via the lens of what respect anymore. Even respect to authorities too, they no longer what respect what constituted authorities.
Okay.
Unlike the way it was before, when you have what reverential fear for parents, reverential fear for people that are in what in authority.
Okay.
Then talking about language too, an average Benin man, just like the way my colleague actually said, instead of them to be interacting with their children with our native language, these children, they are taught in school in English language. By the time they get home, you as a parent, because the institution that we are talking about, it starts from the home. You as a parent, you're supposed to what? Teach your children their local language, inform them about what the social ways of life. But the reverse is the case these days. There are parents that will be applauding them. Oh, it's my child that knows how to speak English, stuff like that. Then another area too is in the area of cultural dilution, the borrow clothes. For example, if you should go to the streets of Benin, the way people address you yourself, you'll be shocked. The sensitive part of their bodies, it will be exposed outside.
Okay.
But prior to this time in Africa, it wasn't like this. So in as much as far as civilization or modernization, it brought a lot of benefits, but there are problems that it did introduce into Africa's system that needs to be addressed.
So that's saying in a nutshell that it's like a Trojan horse that comes with a lot of goodies, but underneath is something
Yes.
that isn't so good. Okay, you made mention of language.
Yeah.
At the risk of sounding as though I'm holding brief for some parents who focus on teaching their children the white man's language, the English language basically. Some of them will tell you that the rationale behind it is to prepare them for exposure, right? Some of them have this impression that, okay, my kids are not going to spend the rest of their lives in this locality. They might have a chance to travel abroad and all of those things. So the idea of teaching them, English language is so they'll be able to communicate with their contemporaries in other parts of the world. Do you think that makes sense?
It doesn't make sense. Like my colleague said before, he made an instance with Japan, for example, that an average Japanese, they prefer their language.
Their language, okay.
Scientifically, talking about technological advancement, is any the third world country, are we in any way in their pedestal?
Absolutely not.
So it has nothing to do with it. Your identity, it starts from your house.
Okay.
It starts from your house.
So charity begins at home, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
All right, Mosais, a quick one. What are the major threats to our African cultural heritage as it stands?
That is a very deep question, and I think I'll go deep with the answers.
By all means, do.
I will start from colonialism. The infiltration of our culture by foreigners. Chinua Achebe wrote, "When things fall apart," as a team, that the Africans had the strength and cohesion of tribal life before the touch of imperialism sent it reeling from a delicate equilibrium.
When you say tribal life, what does that imply?
Well, cohesion of, I shouldn't have used that word, derogation, that derogative word, tribe.
Tribe, okay.
We are trying to eschew that word, tribe. Tribe was a coined language to bring the Africans in colony to a very diminutive position.
Okay.
Barbaric and savage.
Really?
Yes. Now, if you want to conquer a people, a nation, without shooting a gun, what do? You conquer their culture. By the time you take their culture away from them, they are conquered, because it is culture that is the essence
Of the people.
of the people. Without culture, the people don't exist. Culture is a unifying factor. The covenants we have, that these are things we do together, these are laws we abide by, these are ways, patterns of behavior. By the time you conquer that, done. So today, Nigerians and most Africans are suffering from post-imperial blues.
Post-imperial blues.
Yes.
Could that be what some persons describe as neo-colonization?
Neo-colonization. That's the word for it.
By Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes.
The concept of Kwame
Now,
Nkrumah.
Indira Gandhi had to lead the Indians to go to the sea to get salt instead of the salt from Europe or anywhere. And he preferred to wear those clothes not sewn to buttress his Indian nature. And today, the Indians are intact culturally. I want to shock you. In the 80s, 70s, when we were growing up, the Indians made movies. They built Bollywood. They hear English. India was colonized by Britain. They speak English as official language, but they preferred to showcase their artistry to the world in India language.
Okay.
So when you hear those ones, they are cultural exports, which the Indians use to assert their own superiority.
Now, sorry, if I may comment, like the official language you just made mention of, because I happened to stay in India for about 1 year.
Yes.
When it comes to the use of English language, they only speak English to you as a foreigner, not to themselves.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But in Nigeria, it's a different ballgame.
Okay.
You see a Benin man talking with a Benin man, is in English language. Or an Igbo man talking with an Igbo man, is a Benin language. So what is the essence of our own culture? When our language that is to identify us is not identifying us. Rather, we are using another man's language to identify ourselves.
Thank you so much, Mr. Foster. So you can take it from there.
Yes. I'm coming to so many things. We are being, oppressed by westernization, by our own selves. Bob Marley said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our souls. We have not freed our souls. Now, we're ingenious. A brilliant idea of digging the moat as a defensive mechanism during the old time of the Obas, Ogwola and Oba Ewai. Today, the Benin moat is the largest man-made earthwork universally. It is 4 times larger than the great proverbial walls of China. And let's come to this. Benin had a sense of currency denomination and redenomination. Oba Obioye and Oba Aiho, they redenominated the currency. They started the idea of banking. In Benin Kingdom, during the Ogisos, not even the time of the Oba. And several guilds in Benin started to exist from the time of the Ogisos.
Okay.
We had the Bronze-Casters Guild. It did not come with the Portuguese. The Portuguese only saw what we were doing and perfected on it.
They improved on it.
They improved upon it, but they didn't teach us the technology. There is Ileme, Igu, Igbesama. These are skilled workers that produced items, ornaments, farm implements for use.
Okay.
They were weavers. So we were structured along our own cultural evolution. The Benin will say, Upone bomare amaru borede.
What does that mean?
Yes. Before the advent of the whites coming here, We did not tie leaves.
Okay.
We were weaving our own clothes. And so a lot of things. So the problem here now is that our culture is being downplayed by our own selves.
All right, Mr. Moses, I'm afraid we'll have to go on this very important break. Please do hold that thought, because when we return, we'll have to continue from there. Please stay tuned. Don't go nowhere. Well, it's great to have you back, ladies and gentlemen. It's still Flipside on Independence Television. We're taking a look at preserving our cultural heritage in the face of globalization, modernization. Now, Mr. Moses, before we went on that break, you were, giving us a history lesson on how we've evolved as a people before the incursion of the white man. Yeah, you can take it from there.
Yes. From the catalog that I had earlier enumerated, let's go over to science. In Benin, there was a guild responsible for astrology.
Astrology.
We call them Iwoki.
Okay.
They could use the stars, the moon, and all the contents of nature to predict.
Did that have anything to do with divination?
That's a different form of definition.
Was it African magic?
Not magic.
Okay.
Science of nature to do prediction.
Okay.
The Beninese could measure the amount of rainfall in a year. That's why we have a chief who is in charge of that
department. Rainfall.
Department.
Okay.
And so many. We had chroniclers of history like Uworon, like Bieruga, formed a guild that preserved our history in arts. And we had culture so interesting. We had places like Agada. We had places like Ulaga. Ulaga is a recent import.
Okay.
But we had Uwu, Esakpai. We had different,
guilds.
Uwu.
Okay.
And these are entertaining. Then, let me also shock you that the Beninese had a structure, 8th grade, that promoted respect in its own. We had a Morui, the infants.
Okay.
We had Ibienika, children. We had Igbama,
Youth.
that's lower youth.
Okay.
Then we had Egeli. Egeli is higher youth.
Higher youth, okay.
Then we have Edion,
Elders.
and then we had Owe, who presides over the Edion.
Okay.
And if you are not in this grade, you must give respect to the next grade.
A quick question, sorry. Was your way the same thing as the Ojon way?
Owe, you have entered the elders council in a higher realm.
Okay.
Ojon way is the overall head.
Okay.
Ojon way supersedes every other Owe.
Okay.
Because you cannot be 60 in the Odion guild and then you still be called Odion. You are Odion, but you are already nearing the rank of Owe. Okay. It is from the Owe grade that an Odion way is selected.
Okay.
And all this connotes respect at various stages. And there were jobs, work, communal work designed for each of the grades.
Okay.
And everybody did them, perfectly well. There was no friction. So, and in those days, security was everybody's
responsibility.
job. Yes.
Okay.
Everybody's responsibility. And in those days, because of the communal nature of life, everybody knew the other person. And
just like Gina mentioned earlier.
Yes. And the ways of stopping things like thieves, adultery, fornication, there were punishments meted out, rites of purification. If somebody steals in those days, the person will be naked and they will tie odds and ends of ornaments around, and robe in black, and would dance around the entire community.
Okay.
Everybody would know this person is a thief. If a girl,
what was the essence of that? To serve as deterrence?
Deterrent. If you know you are going to be paraded, even before your girlfriend.
To keep you in check.
Of course, you will not try it again.
Okay.
So, these things, checks were there. And we had a very coherent society. Like I said, Chino Achebe said, before the first touch of imperialism sent it really from its delicate equilibrium. Now, we can come back. There can be a renaissance. We can take back all that have been lost. Now, we didn't take pride in our own things. Now, the whole world knows that what the British stole in 1897 are not just decorative ornaments. I will shock you today. They stole the entire Benin Library. Those artworks, some of them had recorded stories about the times of Benin, history. If you see a work dating to the Ogiso era, you'll be able to tell the story of that generation with the artwork. Now, when Obavare was in exile in Calabar, you're going to visit him. He sent a message. This message will be carried by the whites. They carved a stool like this, not so big, but with several motifs around them, and presented to him. The whites thought that, oh, this is a stool they want the Oba to be eaten with. Ovara studied the artwork and saw a picture of the entire Benin. That Benin was still loyal to him. Benin was still loyal to him. They revered their king because the Benin king is the God king. He is all, powerful. So these are recorded history which they stole.
Okay.
So it's like burning down a library. But thank God they did not burn our library. They stole them. And thank God for Omonoba Ewai II, Oba Lohaimwete Ugidigan, for calling for the repatriation, return of the artifact, and they are coming already.
Okay.
Because the head of the tiger cannot be lost in the forest.
All right, thank you so much, Oba Atokbe.
Oba Atokbe.
All right, Mr. Foster, a quick one.
Yes.
Some persons have also argued that some aspects of our culture in those days, were kind of barbaric, especially, certain aspects that had to do with, restriction or violation of human rights. I understand that in some parts of Africa, albinos were executed, so to speak, were killed, for cultural reasons. And then, of course, there were also parts of Africa where it was a taboo to have twins.
Yeah.
So, how do you preserve our cultural heritage without trampling on the fundamental human rights of individuals?
Okay, like my learned colleague said, Benin had a unique structure. And according to the structure, when you don't violate the laid down structure, then your rights will not be violated. Like that of sacrificing albinos, I never heard that concerning the Benin.
The Benin, okay.
Then that of killing of twins, I never heard that concerning the Benin. There was no history about the Benin where it was mentioned that their rights were being violated.
Yeah, I'm actually saying this vis-a-vis the entire African culture.
The entire, yes, depends on their belief system. Depends on their belief system. It is what you believe in that you practice. Some they saw albinos as bad omens to the society, hence sacrificing them. Some they saw twins in that light too, as bad omens, before Miss Lesser came and stopped the killing of twins.
In other words, the coming of the white man wasn't entirely a bad thing after all.
No, it wasn't entirely. If you listen to my definition of civilization, I said it is the culture that has cut across its boundary, being adopted in the latter boundary, to bring out the beauty of the latter boundary's culture, not to discard the culture, the indigenous culture of the latter boundary. Okay. You understand? The whites, they came with something good to some extent, but the idea of our culture now being downtrodden, now seeing the white man's culture as superior, the unique culture that we need to imbibe, that is where the problem is.
Okay.
So now, like I did say before, it was their belief system. It was the level of knowledge they had as at then, not knowing that now just look at it this way. If a goat would give birth to a kid, it will give birth to 2 or more. But the Africans, they did not think in that light, that the human being can equally conceive 2 or 3 at the same time. They believe it is in the nature of the human being.
I want to make an input into this.
Okay.
Not all parts of Africa had the same beliefs about multiple birds or certain species of birds.
Okay.
For instance, in Benin Kingdom, right from time, multiple birds were celebrated. That's why we have Iyiviva.
Yes.
We have Iyiviha. We have Iyivine. Monobaredo kwa kolokolo. Ewa gidigan atokwe. The first Oba to produce quadruplets was celebrated globally because it is a sign that God's blessing is with the kingdom. Okay. So it's celebrated. Now, whatever the Europeans don't like, they call the Africans a name to push it on them, hang it on them as negative. Now, in the Vikings expedition during their wars, the Vikings, the Scandinavians, I read, their history, that before they commence war at the beginning of the year, they sacrifice their strongest soldier to the god called Odin.
Yeah.
So that they can be successful, they can be prosperous, they can come back victorious in that war. And nobody saw anything bad about that. But now, because the Africans, they saw, you see, let me tell you, it's all bullshit and badadash.
Pardon me, sir, that language is actually not allowed on air.
I apologize. Right. I apologize. Now, it's all a way to call the kettle black in order to give it a bad name.
All right.
Now, when we Africans assert our own superiority, there's always a way to downgrade it. And that's why the word tribe is usually used. And I thank God for ethnographers who are gradually cutting that off.
Okay, thank you so much. Just before we get carried away, you can continue.
Yes, like I did say before, some Africans, they did not think in that light because they hadn't the knowledge.
Okay.
If they had thought in that light, that if animals could give birth to multiple babies, then human beings can also do such. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been sacrificing twins or seeing them as bad omens to their families or to their societies.
Okay.
Then, if you also look at the area of albino, it's defects. There's a name for it. Their skin.
Yeah, it's a skin defect.
It's a skin defect. It does not make them a lesser human being.
Okay.
But they hadn't that knowledge, and they saw such as bad omen. But at the end of the day, thank God for civilization, like I did say before. Okay. All those things we had eradicated, and they are now welcome in the society. Though some African nations, they still endanger the albinos or albinos, because I do read on social media how some albinos do get missing, most especially in this in the southern part of Africa, that their lives are in danger. They believe that through them, when they are used for rituals, they can become rich. You understand?
Yeah.
But That is not the case in Nigeria now, because we have a number of albinos
Yeah.
Of course.
all around us.
Exactly.
Right. I'm sure that also that can also be attributed to the activities of human rights activists.
Yes, yes. So, like I did say before, I never saw anywhere the Benin trampled on human rights, except
Okay.
the person must have
Violated
the
laws
structure
of
that has
the
been laid down.
Okay. Thank you very
You're
much,
welcome.
Mr. Foster. Now, Gina, a quick one. What are the roles of cultural practices like festivals and the rest of them in preserving our culture as a people? For example, we have practices like the New Yam Festival, the Igwe Festival, for instance. What role do those practices play in preserving our culture as a people?
Okay, first and foremost, before I respond to your question, I want to quickly contribute to the question that you asked my colleague. As regards our fundamental human rights, any customs or any tradition that clashes with the fundamental human rights of any individual, it should be what? It should be abolished,
Okay,
or it should be reformed. Take, for example, it's still happening in some parts of Nigeria, like child marriage, for example. A child who is barely 14 years old, a child who is barely 13 years old, that child is supposed to be developing themselves intellectually, emotionally, and socially. They have no business in marriage as at that particular time. Then another area too is in the area of gender inequality. It's so common. Even in Benin homes, for example, some will attach much importance to the male child. They will tell you, like, this is my son, this is who is going to succeed me. But at the end of the day, you are trampling upon the fundamental human rights of your girl, your female child.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you are their father. They are your offspring. And with the principles of fairness and equality, you are supposed to develop their lives accordingly.
Equality.
No one is superior to the other.
Okay.
Then that of the role cultural festival it actually plays. Number one, it harmonizes us. It harmonizes a group. And during the course of that festivals, information, knowledge is being transferred from one generation to another. Then the another area too that I will also talk about, it has a way of exposing our culture. Like me myself now, I am a cultural ambassador, in the sense that I am supposed to promote my culture. I'm supposed to pride myself in my culture. So it's a tool for showcasing our talents to the world. Just like Mr. Moses actually said that during the course of Festac 77, the world, they were so amazed at the artifact that was brought from Benin. So it has a way of showcasing us, unifying us.
Okay, thank you so much, Gina. Now, Moses, how does literature contribute to preserving our African culture? In those days, I think the reading culture was given the pride of place, especially amongst the younger generation. Parents ensured that they instilled the reading culture in their children. But nowadays, it seems like just still in the light of what we're talking about, modern civilization, a lot of young people are more given to their gadgets today than their books. So, don't you think this is also contributing to the loss of our cultural values as a people? And what do you think, can be done to encourage the reading culture? And what role do you think the reading culture can also play in promoting cultural heritage?
Well, I'll disappoint you on that.
He said it would disappoint.
Okay.
Now, the internet has contributed more to the spread of our culture.
Okay.
Because
How so?
part of our culture, not hitherto known, have been spread. I can see a lot of young people on the internet trying to do one thing or the other to expose Benin. But these have to also be regulated, because some of them are not in their correct perspective.
Okay.
So what we should do is to try to moderate them and correct them when they are going wrong. Yes, literature can contribute, oral or written. My lecturer, Professor Kokuri Rafona, is a proponent of the fact that books and books and books must be written. If the earlier historians like Jacob Irarewa, Professor O.S.B. Omoegi, Osanabo Osemege Eo, yes, High Priest Osemege Ebohon, and Ikpongusa Osemege, a lot of them who have written. We will not have anything to read. Otherwise, the history of Benin has been told by foreigners. You can imagine a white man coming to write the Benin history. He will write based on what he heard and what he perceives in his heart.
And it's likely going to be erroneous.
Erroneous, you're right. So we need literature. I'm an oral historian, and I still tell my children stories. I remember that I was able to do the first Benin movie, Iwakoe, with my experience from my father's storytelling.
Oh, you produced Iwakoe?
I didn't produce.
Okay.
I played the lead role.
Oh, okay.
And that gave me the impetus to write the second movie, which was called Osegbe. It was based on a historical story that my father told me.
Okay.
And it was a sellout. And these things have a way of replanting our culture. Now, if you know your history, you will know where you are coming from. Because the past is a taproot to the stem of the future.
Okay.
The stem is just the present. And from the stem, we go. And if we, now, anthropologists right now are trying to know the way we lived,
okay,
and why we are, what we are doing now, where we are now, and project
into the future.
And that's what America has been doing.
All right, thank you so much, Moses. I actually do wish we had more time. Well, I'll take that to be your final word on this. Now, Gina, what would be your, parting word on this?
Okay, my parting word, number one, each and every, let me use Edo land or Benin Kingdom as an example. An average Benin boy, an average Benin girl, by right we are all cultural ambassadors. We should try as much as possible towards propagate our culture, to promote our culture in a positive balance. Then the second message is for our parents too. They should try their best to inculcate their children about the customs, the traditions of Benin. Okay. Then another actor too that I will talk about is the government.
Okay.
The government, they should formulate policies, they should formulate laws that will further enhance cultural tourism.
Okay, cultural tourism.
Yes.
All right, Foster, in less than 30 seconds, your final word.
Yeah, my final word is that we all, as a people, should embrace our culture.
Exactly.
If we're able to embrace our culture, then we will be able to pass it to the next generation.
Okay.
By so doing, our culture will be preserved.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say a big thank you to you for taking out time to be with me on the show today and, of course, enlightening the public on everything that has to do with our culture and what we need to know, in order for us to be able to preserve our culture. Thanks once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's been FLIPSIDE on independent television, and I want to say a big thank you to you out there for being there. It's been such an amazing conversation, preserving our cultural heritage in the face of modernization. Well, it is our responsibility to preserve our culture, because if we don't, then there will be nothing for the coming generation, to run with. My name is Harry Igboje, and until I come your way again, same time, same station next week, do ensure you do the right thing, stay out of trouble, and bye for now.